Now I'm going to tell a little story about flying out of Merrill Field one morning. It was around 9 o'clock in the morning, Merrill Field being in Anchorage, Alaska. And it's the morning that Congressman Hale Boggs of Louisiana, a very powerful congressman in Washington, and Nick Begich, a congressman, the only one we had in Alaska due to the low population, disappeared while in a Cessna 310, Don Johns being the pilot. They were on a flight from Anchorage to Juneau. And the reason for the flight, I read later, was so they could get there early enough to rest and that sort of thing, since they were going to have some function in Juneau that night, and one or the other, probably Congressman Boggs, was going to make a speech, or both of them. At any rate, the interesting thing about this flight was the turbulence. There was strong winds were coming out of Turnagain Arm across the mountains from the Gulf of Alaska, and I was flying for a company called Polar Airways that winter. The jobs at BLM had shut down in the fall, and I was only temporary at the time. And I made the takeoff out of Merrill Field with a crew that was going over to the Beluga Power Station. They had a big turbine over there that ran off of natural gas. Perhaps 20-minute flight, something, just right across across Cook Inlet, and flew down the west side of Cook Inlet for a ways to an airstrip down there. At any rate, as I mentioned, this was a Grand Commander 680 FL. Nice airplane, but it wasn't a real good bush airplane. But that's one of the airplanes we had to fly. So took off, got the gear up, and shortly after takeoff in the climb out, I got the first really hard bump, and it was so turbulent, I recall, that my feet were lifted off the rudder pedals and hit the bottom of the instrument panel, and both my shins were bleeding. And I'd been in some turbulence before in the Goose, but I had never had to face bleeding legs before. At any rate, I turned right and got as far away from the turbulence as I could, getting away from the mountains, took these gentlemen to where they were going, and I came back with whatever load I had. Probably had some people on the return, went back to Merrill Field, landed, and shut it down for a while until the winds dissipated. It was just too turbulent to be flying. And later I found out that at that time, within about 10 minutes of my takeoff, around 9 o'clock, that the three people in that airplane were overdue in Juneau, and the way that airplane would have left would normally, he would have turned left, gone across the mountains to the Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, and on down to Juneau. But I could not imagine anyone trying to fly through that turbulence. And they never made it. I looked for that airplane since we flew a schedule to Valdez several times a week. I looked for that airplane for weeks, and it was never found. Probably went into the water or onto a snowfield, and but they were never found, even though Lyndon Johnson sent SR-71 photo reconnaissance planes up and everything else. They never found those people.